The restaurant, known as La Cantina Italiana, is in the same building originally built by the Mencamboni family in 1946. The business was first a supermarket and a spaghetti house. Lee Mencamboni runs the business today. Lee, the smell of your mom's homemade spaghetti sauce had a lot to do with the success of this family business. Are you still using that same recipe?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You are?
Oh, yes.
And
sure.
is it a big secret recipe that you just won't tell anyone? Or?
Yeah, we can't. How could we? They duplicate it on me.
When did you get involved in the business? And tell me about the grand opening. That was in 1940. It was built in 46, and the opening was in 47, correct?
Yeah, early 47. That's correct. The building was built by my grandfather and some of the Italian, our relatives really from that area of Framingham, which was known as Tripoli. Mm-hmm. All the Italians who initially came to this country from a certain region in Italy ended up in that section.
I'm going to show our viewers right now a picture of grand opening day. Who are the folks in this picture?
All right, let's see. From left to right.
Well, the gentleman with the tie must be your dad,
Let's
right?
see. Yeah.
Holding
That's
the
Dad.
hat? Okay.
He's holding the hat. My mom's right next to him. And two of the first workers are employees that they had at the grocery store.
Wonderful.
Yeah, both of those are meat cutters.
Have you kept this? This is such a historic photo.
Yeah, I have.
You have this
many.
hanging in the restaurant?
I do, and we have probably 200 or so of the same type of pictures, all on the walls of the restaurant. You know, from both sides of the family. I was very fortunate to have a family on both sides that were picture takers. So we have all that history.
You have a nice photo coming up also of your dad. What was his drive for getting into this business? Do you remember what motivated him at
Well, yeah, it was, you know, my father was really, he had the entrepreneurial spirit. He grew up working in grocery stores and wanted always to have a grocery store. Initially, it was a grocery store that they built. That first picture, that grand opening that you showed, was the opening of the grocery store.
So at that point, they really didn't have any plans for serving up some of the delicious food that you have today?
Correct.
Okay. Based on what you've learned throughout the years in your family history, what was the trigger for switching over from supermarket and spaghetti sauce to a full-blown restaurant?
Sure, that entrepreneurial spirit that my father had. Basically, we lived upstairs from the restaurant. They spent 16, 17 hours a day running the grocery store. My mother had a stove in the back, and she would be cooking back there, and people literally came in and wanted to know what that smell was. And it happened to be either chickens or sausages or the spaghetti sauce for that night's dinner. And my father, being, you know, the man he was, began to sell Mrs. Mencamboni spaghetti sauce. And of course that led on to, you know, we started to sell more chickens, more sausage, more spaghetti sauce, and he eventually divided the grocery store down the middle. One half became the spaghetti house, which was a restaurant, which he began, and the other half stayed a grocery store until about 2 years later, and then the whole thing became a restaurant, and he changed the name from the Spaghetti House to La Cantina Italiana.
Now you had an interesting story about the name, because now you call it La Cantina Italiana, but it was only La Cantina.
That's
then.
correct. Yeah, we never had a problem with the name La Cantina. It was everybody realized it was an Italian restaurant. But I would say within the past 10, maybe 12 years, we were getting calls about being a Mexican restaurant. Matter of fact, the funny story is that I got a piece of mail informing me that we had won Best Mexican in Metro West. So,
what did you say to that?
I knew they had to change something, so I tacked Italiana on the end of it to make sure.
Well, that certainly clarifies it.
Yeah.
Yes. So, from your perspective, you know, we talked a little bit earlier with Timothy Hanna about the difficulties in running a restaurant business and the toll it takes on family and the key to success. What insights can you share?
As far as key to success or the toll it takes on families, well, you know, you have to be there and you have to work. And like Tim said, his family was involved and my family has been involved and is involved. It is a labor of love. It's a tough business, can be very hard. But I've been very fortunate to be doing something that I do love, to do. I was fortunate also to work in the kitchen with my mother for many years. She's passed away now. It's been 11 years, but we had a great time in the kitchen. We were always back there. I don't cook as much as I used to, but I'm still in the prep room and making sure everything is consistent. That's as Tim said, you have to be consistent. The food has to be good. And really, I've used this example of a three-legged stool. The restaurant business can be like that. You have to have quality, you have to have value, and you have to be consistent. If any one of those legs is not right, it'll topple. And so that's the challenge to people today.
Now, according to the Framingham Board of Health, they say there's about 300 restaurants in Framingham. That's a lot of competition.
Sure is.
So how do you keep ahead of the game?
Well, you know, we just keep doing what we've been doing. You know, not to be redundant, but the bottom line is that when people come to the restaurant, they know what they're going to get, and they know that it is a value, and we do most of our products from scratch. I'm not going to say that some of the chains or franchise units are not as good as us. What they do very well, but what we do very well also, and it's categorically different than what they're producing.
And do you have to put a lot into marketing?
I do somewhat. Right now we're running some ads at the cinema. I use the local Metro West Daily News. It's a great newspaper to get the message out because everybody in this area reads it. And I do some radio, not a lot of radio.
And what are the most popular dishes at your restaurant?
We make a great homemade lasagna, and around this time of year, we sell literally hundreds of pans of lasagna. We do a big catering business, and you can pick those things up either with heating instructions or hot if you want to eat it right away. And the catering menu lists probably 80 or 90 items that we do. As far as the restaurant goes, we sell, of course, the lasagna. We have veal scallopini, which has always been a huge seller. Veal parmesan has always been huge. But lately, chicken parmesan, because we use a breast of chicken, in the past 10, 12 years, actually outsells veal now. Maybe that's because of people's consciousness about meat, you know, red meat or whatever, but chicken parmesan is huge also.
Now, do you have a lot of family events there or a lot of catering events in the restaurant, or is it mostly that you cater out?
No, we do out catering, yes. We will deliver, we will do a lot of things like that. We'll do anything to accommodate. And I have 2 function rooms, and we can fit up to 90 people. And there's a great niche in this area. As Tim said earlier, there's only 3 besides La Cantina Italiana that have function rooms now, whereas years past there were many of them. So, and we do. Our room is, there's not a week goes by that we don't have 4 or 5 functions going on, either upstairs, downstairs, day or night.
Well, it sounds like, you know, word of mouth over the years has built tremendously for you, and you don't have to depend on the advertising. You have a good clientele. What are you looking towards for the future?
Well, you know, stay the course, basically, for the future. But I feel that the direction of banquets and functions would be something I would put more emphasis on in the future, along with the restaurant.
And in terms of getting more functions to come into the restaurant and that type of thing, you want to grow that a little bit?
Business meetings, yes, definitely. There's a lot of room for growth there.
And in terms of your clientele, do you find that mostly the people are from within the Framingham-Ashland area, or is it a broader base than that?
Well, you know, being there now for 60 years, the base is broad. We do cover a multitude of towns, not necessarily only border towns, but Needham, Wellesley, Milford, Bellingham, so forth.
And so your location on 135, you plan to stay there for a while.
Oh yeah, sure.
And and to grow that, and you're reaching out further and trying to expand the use of the the use of the facility, the use of the restaurant.
Yeah.
Any tips for newcomers into the restaurant industry in this market?
Well, it's pretty tough. You just have to love what you do, and if you love what you do, my philosophy has always been a restaurant is based from the kitchen out. My family has always been cooks. You know, we're back there doing the work, and so we know. And that's what's been part of our success, being able to control the recipes and watching over that kitchen.
Mm-hmm. And are you happy with how your chef experience has been? Is it a chef that you hire or someone in your family?
Actually, no. I still do some cooking. I'm in the prep room a little bit, but I have guys who've been with me for a number of years, 20, 25 years, and they know what's expected. They do the job, and we make sure they're happy.
Well, that's great. We wish you much continued success.
Thank you.
At the other end of the restaurant spectrum, there are those that are just starting out. We're going to meet one new restaurant owner right after this. We'll be right back.